The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I'm your host, Danny Arlin. Today I'm covering the topic of yellow freight. I know it's a little bit old news, but still worth going over. There's a lot of blame going around on this. Yellow's claiming it's the Teamsters' fault. The Teamsters are claiming it's Yellow's fault. They have 1 year left in their current contract, and they go to the Teamsters and they're like, hey, we would like to negotiate to try to save the company again. And Sean told them to kick rocks. Find a way to secure your finances and manage your company appropriately or go out of business. I understand that there was nearly 30,000 employees at Yellow that were going to be affected by this. Nearly 22,000 of them were Teamsters. And one might say, well, how do they feel about it? Well, that's exactly what today's episode is about. I interviewed a local new Penn / Yellow driver, Mike Rousseau, to get his feel on, the history of Yellow and what happened. And was Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters at fault here? Were the members mad at the administration for taking these actions and holding strong against Yellow and telling them to either fix their problems or go out of business? The Teamsters were done giving to them. There's roughly 169 terminals. And currently there's a bidding war on all that property and stuff. Estes has put in a bid of $1.3 billion. Old Dominion has put in a bid of $1.5 billion. A lot of the facilities are old and run down, but it's the land and the space near major metropolitan areas that is the catch on that. So they'll band-aid it or rebuild on the property, but they still owe vacation time to employees. That $700 million federal loan by the Trump administration to date in 3 years have paid a total of $230 towards that $700 million. Are you kidding me? I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. They were given a loan by the government, and they were given a real low interest rate on that loan based upon the fact that they gave the government 30% stockholder share in the company. How good that did, the stock's no good anymore. So they essentially screwed the government. They say they're going to pay back the $700 million, but they didn't even pay their employees. And they couldn't come up with $50 million. Granted, a lot of the assets will take care of that, but who's going to get that money? I mean, current records show that Yellow had over 100,000 creditors that they owed money to, including Amazon. They're just, there's not anything good to say about them. I mean, they failed to make payments on the pension fund. They filed a suit against the Teamsters, saying the Teamsters were at fault for their demise, when history shows that this is simply not true. I mean, it clearly they have been mismanaged. And finally, the Teamsters said, it's enough. Sink or swim, we're done. And you'll be surprised to hear what the employees have to say about that. Like I said before, the employees have given nearly $5 billion back to this company in concessions to try to keep them afloat. I mean, how much more do we keep giving them? I mean, how long does it take to reestablish yourself or get better, smarter financial people involved to help you recover? Yellow's share of the freight industry will be easily absorbed by the competitors, as well as their assets. I mean, there's still ADF, T-Force, USF Redway, and Standard Forwarding, some DHL, and some Penske truck lease companies that are all Teamsters. Hopefully they have room for some of these drivers. As we know, Yellow included the companies of Yellow, Roadway, Holland, and New Penn. And it truly is a travesty. Nobody wanted to see the demise of this company. It's not good for anybody. But I believe, granted, I'm not outside party, not affected by this, but I think Sean and Fred and the Teamsters did the right thing by telling Yellow was enough, because these men and women at Yellow and their subsidiaries have worked their asses off and have given enough to that company. And it's time. It's tough because they're one of the oldest trucking companies out there, and they were in the top 5 of the LTL industry. But other companies are making it. So how is it that Yellow is so different? ABF is Teamsters. T-Force, formerly UPS Freight, they're all holding their own. So they can't even blame it on the union, or that they had, labor costs because of being union. So anyways, here's Mike Rousseau and his evaluation of everything that's been going on. I appreciate your time. Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the next episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I'm your host, Dan Arlin. Today we have a special guest, Mike Rousseau, a Teamster in Western Massachusetts through Local 404. He is a 20-plus year Teamster who has worked in the freight industry and is one of the casualties of the closure of Yellow and their subsidiaries in recent days. I brought Mike on to discuss and debunk some of the rumors out there that the Teamsters are the cause of the failures at Yellow versus the years of mismanagement of the company. Mike, if you could just quickly introduce yourself and just give us a quick bio of your work history in the freight industry.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan, for having me on. I think it's very important that some of us from Yellow get to tell our story. The company has been very vocal telling their side. I've been a member of my local for 20-something years. I've been working at New Penn Motor Express in West Springfield, Massachusetts since 2006. I was a elected union steward there for 3 years and spent most of my time running line haul, which allowed me to interact with members at other locals or other freight terminals in the New Penn system, of which we had about 25, including one in Canada. So the New Penn family, we weren't a very large freight company. We were just a small portion of Yellow, but we were hardworking and we were very profitable until I'd say maybe a couple years ago, because Yellow started changing our business model. They started extracting as much profit as they could from us. And as a result, we started losing a lot of business. Merging of what was left after all the acquisitions that started in the early 2000s, Yellow started buying up many companies and merging them together. And the ultimate merger was going to be one Yellow, which was the rebranding and the merging of terminals and closing terminals and people moving all over, bumping in with seniority, which was creating a lot of confusion and so there was pushback from members, because it was originally going to be done with just a letter of agreement, and the IBT stepped up and said, well, wait a minute, you want to make these huge changes which are going to affect a lot of contract language and a lot of supplemental language throughout the country. Let's just renegotiate the contract, which was going to be up for renewal April 1st of 2024. Let's renegotiate it now. We'll put all the one Yellow language in it, which is all the merger stuff, but we're going to ask for something in return, which is going to address the 15% wage reduction and the 75% pension contribution reduction that we've been working under since 2009. And that's what started the whole mess.
So Yellow was coming up on their 100th year of service, so kissing a century mark. Roughly 22,000 Teamsters were put out of work by this closure. After years of nearly $5 billion in concessions from the members and hundreds of millions in bailouts from the government, can you give us a little bit of idea of where this mismanagement was? How did all those concessions and government bailouts not help the members and proceeded to end up closing the company?
Wow. We might run out of time explaining that one, but I'll break it down as
just the highlights,
short and sweet. Right. Because hopefully all my brothers and sisters out there will back me up on this one. If you look back at all the quarterly financial results and the year-end ones, a lot of money was paid to senior executives and bonus money. That's where a lot of it went. A lot of it went to bad decisions from the senior level all the way down to the individual terminal level. And we have all seen it. I've traveled extensively out west. The whole travel program, they were basically paying us twice as much money per week to do the same job we were doing at our home terminal. Just go out west. They were short-staffed because when they merged all the terminals out west last September, there were 11 states. A lot of people quit. So now we're short-staffed. We can't hire anybody because we're the lowest paid LTL out there. But oh yeah, we give you a free health insurance and you get a pension. Well, that's not attracting new people. They need the money.
Now, two fun facts that I came up with. I say fun in jest. Since 2009, annual revenues at Yellow reached approximately $5 billion over all those years. But in most years, they showed a loss, and they never showed more than a $25 million profit in any given year. So that just shows that, they were making the money. It wasn't showing up in the bottom line.
We were making a lot of money. We had a lot of revenue coming in. You would say, well, we should be able to hang on to some of that. Nope. It was going out as fast or faster than we were making it. Essentially, Yellow was living check to check. They were making their payroll, and this is my opinion. I can't back it up with facts right now, but this is my opinion, going to work every day, year after year, at multiple terminals throughout the country. Our accounts receivable was making our payroll. So when freight levels dropped off, as they did a month ago, 3 weeks ago, they just kept getting worse. When the freight levels dropped, now we're struggling. We're living check to check, so we're struggling. We miss a couple of days' work, we might not be able to pay mortgage. We're eating ramen. We got to cut back, and it kind of snowballs. And I can't tell you where the money went, but I think had a lot to do with there's not a lot of companies that are gaining from Yellow going out. And I'll tell you why that is, because we were hauling freight for cheap. Supposedly T-Force had a huge increase in freight volumes. ABF is getting a little piece of it, not much, but nobody out there is saying, hey, we can't keep up with this stuff. We got freight stuffed on our dock and in our trailers from Yellow. Why? Because Yellow was hauling freight cheap. And when you do that, yeah, you have volumes. Yeah, you have revenue. But at the end of the day, it's a race to the bottom. And
so in 2020, the Trump administration gave a $700 million COVID rescue loan to the company after posting a $100 million loss the previous year. They were not technically eligible for that loan, but they got it anyways. Mm-hmm. And to date, Yellow has only paid back $230 of that loan, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine the monthly payments for anybody having a loan being less than that. I mean, I pay more than that in my car payment. So of the 700, and the U.S. Treasury, in lieu of that loan, took on a lot of the company's shares, which obviously has dropped off considerably since the closure, at one point reaching as low as 60 cents per share. And to your point, the average load at Yellow was about $80 less per shipment than other carriers. They were around the 320 mark, and most freight carriers were around the $400 mark. And a lot of people are speculating that their prices were that cheap to kind of offset the chaos and delay in delivery of product to companies.
And to talk a little bit about that whole COVID issue, when COVID hit us, I want to say it was maybe June of 2020. There was a layoff at my terminal, laid off a bunch of people. I was at the top of the layoff list, so I was able to work every day. A lot of guys were sitting home, and it came to light that August 1st, we were going to lose our health insurance because Yellow hadn't been paying the contributions to the health and welfare fund. They also weren't paying the pension contributions. We did not know that as union members. We were just saying, hey, COVID's here. We got to support our families. The company didn't close. They didn't tell us all to sit home. They told some of us to. And I came in and I was driving a straight truck, making residential deliveries because one of our biggest accounts at the time was Home Depot. So everyone was stuck home. They were getting money from the government, and they were going online and buying a whole bunch of stuff to do all those projects around the house on the honey-do list that they never had the time or money to do. And yours truly was showing up there with a truck full of products for them. And I actually worked more hours. I think most of us did. Everybody that was coming in, they were asking us to work Saturdays on top of all the hours we were putting in during the week to keep up with the e-commerce demand. And like I said, we found out, hey, we're going to lose. It was probably towards the end of the early part of July. We might be losing our health insurance August 1st. What is going on? No one's told us anything or talked about it. And we're in the middle of COVID, where if one of us gets sick and we're in intensive care and we have no health insurance, right? This could be the end in more ways than one. So that was part of the whole $700 million loan. The first half of it went to bring everybody up to date on their health and welfare contributions and retirement contributions. That was tranche A. Tranche B, which was the second half of that loan, was to purchase equipment because our equipment was awful.
Yellow started acquiring different companies. In 2003, most notably, they acquired Roadway. And in 2005, U.S. Freightways, causing billions of dollars in loans, undercharging the loads, as I had mentioned earlier, approximately $80 less per shipment than the average cost. In 2009, they rebranded themselves as YRC, merging the Yellow and the Roadway logos. And in 2009, same time period, was the first round of concessions by the Teamsters to help the company out and help them get back on their feet, to include an 18-month pension contribution freeze. And then there was a second round of concessions to the company to help them out in 2010. And a lot of people are trying to blame Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters for the failure of Yellow, because the company was trying to put in for a change of operations. And Sean finally said, enough with the mismanagement, enough of the concessions. It's time for this company to handle their business. And if they fail, that's on them. Because of, as an employee that was watching all this happen, and as a Teamster watching your leader finally hold this company accountable, if you could just shed some light on that timeline a little bit, and just a generalized feeling of what the company did versus what the union was doing, and where does this blame truly lie? Is the Teamsters at fault here because they're a union holding a company accountable, or was this company just bad at running a business?
Those are all great questions, and I'll answer it as best as I can. I've only been a member at New Penn at my terminal since 2006. So I came in after the acquisition started. The CEO at the time, who was long since gone, went on a shopping spree with the credit cards, bought a lot of companies, and with the okay of the previous administration. It shouldn't have been allowed. It was almost like creating a monopoly here, and he was basically buying up a bunch of union companies. And anybody could have seen that the only thing that's going to come out of this is a merger. And when you merge union companies, we have a thing called dovetail, and they merge seniority lists, and only one person gains in that, and that's the guy at the top. Everybody else loses seniority. Never a good thing, but it is what it is. We live for another day. And New Penn was left alone for many years, even though we had been owned by Roadway. Yellow and Roadway were merged to create YRC, which in itself, I never understood that, because everybody knew Yellow, everybody knew Roadway. Now we rebranded it to 3 initials. Who's that? I don't know.
And that stood for Yellow Roadway Combined, correct?
Yellow Roadway Company, I believe it was the name of it. And, and
that probably led to some confusion as to who they were.
Serious confusion. And us New Penn guys, we just stood back and said, I don't know what's going on, but we continue to make money and do our jobs. And, and the YRC guys were not happy. Now here we are coming into 2023, started in 2022 with the whole One Yellow thing, which was merged the 4 remaining companies, which was YRC, New Penn, Holland, and Redaway. Merge all those 4 into one remaining company.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to rebrand it Yellow. They started sticking vinyl stickers on everything, which they spent a lot of money doing that. And it wasn't even approved yet. Up until today, or the last day of operations, which was July 30th, when we brought a trailer to Amazon, which we did a lot, the name of the company, they'd ask, hey, what company are you from? Well, look at the door of my truck. There's no company of that name. Amazon, one of the largest retailers in the United States or the world at this point, we were Roadway in their books, which leads back to they merged Yellow Roadway, had a big problem with the branding, and now they're renaming us Yellow. But one of our largest customers is still calling us Roadway. And a lot of the documents that are coming out in the bankruptcy court is the name Roadway is all over them, which ceased to exist a long time ago. So a lot of things weren't done properly. And to get back to your question about the company blaming the Teamsters for the demise of the company, I guess it's easier, to point the finger at somebody else, because we've all heard that expression, when you point the finger at someone else, there's 4 pointing back at you. So it's easier just to blame somebody else.
Pointed the finger at Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters because they tried to paint a picture that this rebranding of One Yellow was going to save the company, and the Teamsters would not agree to the change of operations because they saw the writing on the walls, and they finally said, get your house in order, and if you don't and you go out of business, that's on you. How was that perceived by, in your opinion, and maybe a little reflection on, things that you talked about with your coworkers and how they felt about that? Were they generally supportive of the IBT's decision to take that stance and no longer allow the concession stand, if you will, to be open?
Oh, absolutely. When Sean O'Brien, Fred Zuckerman, when they took leadership of the IBT, and they, from day one, they said, listen, we're doing things differently, and we're not gonna accept the things that were accepted previously. We were all very impressed. We were all hopeful. We back him 100%. I still back our leadership 100%. Even though I lost my job, I didn't want to lose my job. I don't think anybody wanted to lose their job.
Why would they?
Right. But at the end of the day, you realize, and the further you get away from this point in time, it'll be easier to understand this, because there's a lot of people hurting right now. They might not like what I'm saying. They might not understand it, but it will be clear soon enough. Is the concessions, they couldn't continue forever. And that's what Yellow was going to ask for. Yellow Corporation, the freight business, the freight company, would be a non-union company. The wages, the benefit package, the pension, they wanted to get rid of all that, and they wanted to compete with the non-unions. And the only way to do that is we had to get rid of that contract. And so the IBT leadership said, no, we're not going to allow it. We're not going to let you gut the contract. And in the company's mind was, if we gut the contract, we get these concessions moving forward, it'll save the company and we will be profitable again. Now, a couple of years ago during COVID, that was a period of the highest freight rates the freight industry has ever since deregulation in the 80s. Now, people new to this business might not understand what I'm talking about, but if you do your homework on that, do a little Google research, the money that was made in the freight industry during COVID and immediately following COVID made a lot of companies huge profits. Now, here we are in 2023, and we're bankrupt. There's no money left. We're out of business. How can you blame that on union members that went to work every day, including every day during COVID? Because we couldn't work from home. We were going to people's homes, bringing them products that they ordered every single day. So to be blamed for the demise of the company, I'm personally insulted by that, and every Teamster should be.
One more thing that I'd like to point out, on top of the timeline that people can look up for themselves and verify for themselves, is there was also a big thing where the company was caught defrauding the U.S. government. They had some government contracts. Yes. They were inflating shipping weights and charging improper rates, and then they were falsifying statements to conceal their actions. They kind of were let off the hook a little bit by that, because the federal government went after them, and it resulted in 6.8 million, which is a small number these days, settlement with the U.S. government, and another 2.1 million to the investors, but avoided admitting any wrongdoing. I mean, you don't pay out that kind of money, nearly $9 million, for doing nothing wrong. And and you add that in with everything else, the acquisitions, the huge debt, the mismanagement, the $5 billion that the Teamsters gave in concessions to try to save this company. At what end do you get to where you say this company's worth saving? And I'm personally heartbroken for each and every one of you guys that lost your jobs. It's nothing anybody ever wanted. Sean didn't want it. The Teamsters didn't want it. But at some point, you can't do the work that you guys are doing for pennies. And the company obviously didn't learn its lessons. I mean, we're going back to 2003, 2005. I mean, we're talking about 20 years of failures to get to this point. There was not anything the Teamsters could have done to save this company other than undercut their members some more, allow them to do this change of operations. And history tells you that they were going to fail. I mean, they were already failing at every other thing they had done. And the thing is there are other freight companies that are doing just fine. I mean, freight in general is not the most profitable business in the world, but there's other companies that T-Force and a few other ones that are doing quite fine. I mean, T-Force just bought UPS Freight when UPS decided to get out of the freight business. So clearly it can be done. It clearly just a mismanagement. Since your guys' layoffs and ultimate demise of the company, have the Teamsters reached out to its membership and tried to assist them in getting new jobs or placement, or just advice on where to proceed from this point?
Actually, yes, they have. We did have a meeting at my local past Saturday. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. I did go to the union hall today. I did receive information about how to file for unemployment, what to do about any vacation time or sick time that you had not been paid for, what to do if you were behind in dues because the company, if you were on checkoff and they took your dues out of your paycheck but didn't submit it to your local and now you're behind, what to do. So if anybody has any questions, call your business agent, go down to your local, They will have answers for you. They also did have a job board. Each local has a list of union companies in their local that you can apply to. If you do find something, spread the word. If you hear of something, and this goes for all union members, if you hear of something, call your local, call your business agent, tell them, hey, they're looking for some guys over here or girls. They're looking for drivers here.
Mm-hmm.
They have warehouse positions available, because there were a lot of people at Yellow that did not have a CDL. And if you can help somebody out, please do. If you can recommend somebody, please do. And let's all help each other get through this together.
What I want to say, Mike, is I feel for what you guys are going through. I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for all the hardship that has been brought upon the Teamster members across the country who are dealing with this. And, you know, locally here in Western Mass, if any of the Yellow, New Penn guys need anything, please reach out to me. If there's anything I can do to help you out, I will. I do know that there's a few companies, I'm sure they went over them at the meeting, that there are some openings around here. So hopefully, I mean,
Yes.
locally, I think we had about 20 guys that were displaced. And I know that there's 2 or 3 places that need drivers. So I think most of our local guys will probably be okay. This story isn't completely done yet.
It's not. It's not over
as we
yet.
talked before we started the show, the stock is still being traded. It even rebounded from a low of 60 cents
Mm-hmm.
or so up to in the $5 range, which, you know, still $5
Right.
is cheap for a stock, but that's an incredible bounce for a company that's out of business. So
Right.
maybe there's a glimmer of hope, but certainly people don't want to rely on that. I wish everybody the best. I hope you, Mike, I hope you land on your feet. I know you will. You know, there's still a lot of freight to be moved in this country, and
Oh, yeah.
I wish you well. Obviously, you know, you have my support, and we'll see what the next chapter holds on that, but I do wish you well with everything.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate your support, and you're doing a great job with your show, and everyone should tune in.
I
Keep up to
appreciate
date.
that. Well, brothers and sisters, that was the latest episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I appreciate you stopping by. Solidarity for our brothers and sisters.